So Kim says she has two questions, one regarding hubs and one regarding being an introvert. Okay, so Kim, let's hear the question about hubs first.
Hi, Tad. I'm new to all this. I only heard about you last week, so this is my very first thing. So apologies if I'm a bit basic in the way I'm speaking, but I've been watching quite a few of your videos, and I've heard you talk about hubs as a really good source for introductions, basically, to my potential future clients. And my niche, if I may say, what I think my niche is unfulfilled professionals with soul, whose soul knows that there's something more. And I have a connection with a hub, an organization, a charitable organization, who I think, or who I know has contact with these types of people, but they are not willing to like recommend people, so, you know, to refer people my way. So the kind of people that I'm likely to, who I most appeal to be working with, are those who wouldn't make it public. Nobody knows, apart from them, that they're in this state of being unfulfilled because they wouldn't share that with anybody else. So I'm just wondering how I can find hubs which might actually be useful to me rather than hubs that aren't useful to me.
Okay, well, I hear a couple issues here. One is that the people themselves are sort of closet soulful people, but they don't out themselves about it. Is that correct?
It's more that, partly that, yes, but it's also the fact that they don't admit to having problems. They don't admit to being dissatisfied with their situation.
They don't admit to it. Are they aware of it?
Yes, they probably are, but they don't share it with anyone else for fear of jeopardizing their position in their career.
Okay. And so that's problem number one, is that they don't even want to publicly admit it and talk about it themselves. Problem number two is that even though you have a hub that's connected to these people, they're not wanting to make introductions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're not really a hub then, are they?
Sorry?
That means they're not really a hub for me.
Yeah, functionally not. Okay, so this question, what do you do when they're ashamed of, there's a video in the membership about this, but not so helpful for you right now. So let's just talk about this. I think there's a whole topic on this. There are other issues like this. Let's say somebody's addicted to pornography. They're just not going to be talking about that. Somebody is any kind of addiction, drugs or whatever, people tend not to be so open about it, especially in the early stages. Or let's say they cheated on their spouse and they're struggling with, it's unlikely to be a breezy topic of conversation at the office. So there are certain issues where that nobody wants to admit it to their friends, even if they're keenly aware they have it. They're about to go through a divorce. I mean, it's just these things get hidden. So that becomes one of the questions, and this is, to step back, there's three criteria, I think, of a good target market. Number one, it's clear. If I hear it, I know I'm in that group or not. Number two, there's enough of them who can afford to pay you full price. That's a big deal. And so in this case, it's like, check. Yeah, check. I mean, the first one, could we hone it a bit more? But I think generally people get it. I'm a professional. I'm, working for the man, and I don't feel fulfilled. Generally, broadly, we get that. Are there enough who can afford to pay you? Definitely. But here's the third one. Can you find them? Meaning, are there hubs? And that's the big question, because if you can't check all three of these, it's really worth reevaluating or honing or shifting a bit. So I would be asking that of everybody. Where do unfulfilled professionals hang out? Like, are there places? I bet you there are. There must be podcasts about this. There must be various magazines about it. There must be conferences and events that these people would likely frequent. So there's that. Another way to come to this, though, is you start to think, okay, in terms of networks of professionals, well, there's okay, two approaches. One is you just find networks of professionals and you just assume a bunch of them are going to be unfulfilled and you speak to them, which just sounds like that's the hub you've got so far. But you might find some others who are willing to bring you in, who host these kinds of things, conferences for, corporate workers, and you just know, okay, out of that room, there's going to be a chunk that would resonate with what I'm talking about. That's one possibility. But the other possibility is you really hone what you mean by soul, and you find hubs for people who are drawn to those conversations about soul. And good to hone, like, what authors are we talking about? What schools of thought on soul are we talking? Is this Thomas More? Is this Sarah Brach? Is this John O'Donohue? Is this some other Catholic, Buddhist? Like, what do you mean by it? And you go to those groups, those kinds of hubs that are constellated around this idea of soul, and you know that some of them will be in the corporate world working for the man, and you'll be able to reach them. So ideally, we'd find a hub that's both. That's the easiest. But sometimes you can say, okay, I can't find one that's an easy fit for both. So I'll just go with this one, either with the, in this case, the sort of demographics, or I'll go with the psychographics. And I'll see if I can find people in those ways. The other thing that occurs to me is there are corporate wellness programs. And there may be a way that you could go in through that. I mean, they bring in meditation people, yoga people. Now, if you go in saying, are you unfulfilled? I don't know. If I was the CEO, I probably wouldn't want to bring you in. It's like, you're unfulfilled with our work. Let me help you find new work outside of this corporate. I'm not going to bring in somebody who's like a spiritual headhunter, who's like trying to get people back on the team of humanity and out of the machine. But if you could frame it as, do you struggle with anxiety? Do you struggle with depression? What are the symptoms of being unfulfilled that might be able to sneak you in? Maybe you could go in and do a session around, depression in the corporate world. And you could hint at it in it that, hey, sometimes it's just, we're not in the right work, and if you'd like my help, here's my website. Maybe that could be a way in. But the big thing in terms of hubs that I would recommend to everybody is just ask. You just say, here's the kind of people I want to reach. Where do I find these people? And just ask, and you'll get leads. The first ones may not be great, but somebody may say, oh, have you seen this group? By the way, meetup.com is great. There's tons of groups on meetup.com, but you might find one of those. And then when you talk to the person organizing that meetup, you say, can you think of anyone else I should talk to? And you ask that of everybody. Is there anyone else you can think of I should talk to? And it goes like that, and eventually you start to map out the scene. And then, oh my God, this conference, you have to go to this conference. This is the one. This is where they all go. And then if you find, oh, this is a good conference, well, then you could speak at the conference. I just actually did a call the other day. I guess it was was it the Friday call? I guess it was, in the membership, and somebody was talking about going to a conference. And I just went into it, of all the things you can do with a conference. You can just go and network. You can go have a table. You can go speak at it. You could host parties at there's all sorts of things you could do, which ties to your next question, which I thought was about the being an introvert, which I imagine would affect your desire to go to a conference and throw parties. But what's your question around introversion?
That's more about the fact that it doesn't come easy to me to put lots of stuff out there. Like, you do lots of videos and you do throw parties, I guess. Whereas I'm much more kind of a one-on-one type of person. And I struggle sometimes to think of stuff to put out there, because I tend to be more internal than I am external, like putting stuff out. And that doesn't really help me from a marketing point of view. I feel like marketing is definitely my area of challenge. So I just wanted to had any thoughts around that.
Now, what kind of things, when you're thinking about putting stuff out there, what kind of things are crossing your mind?
I want to be useful to people. I want to draw in people who might be experiencing the kind of things that we've been talking about, that they're struggling with. And I want them to want to talk to me, I guess.
Okay, so you're not thinking about putting out like ads and hire me, but more useful content that would be beneficial to people.
Kind of, yeah, tantalizing content, I think. I don't want to give everything away, but I'm thinking mostly on social media here.
Okay, a few thoughts on this. One, feel free to give everything away. This is my advice to everyone. Just give it all away. If any of you think that I'm holding the real stuff in the membership and YouTube is just getting the scraps, I give away my whole day long workshop. I mean, this is one of the toughest. What do you charge for? What do you give away for free? So I'm not trying to dismiss that quandary, but the if the concern is if I give away all this content, nobody will hire me. It's just often the reverse.
Yeah,
People, so
that's not really my concern actually,
okay,
because what I do is I don't do training, I do coaching, and so everybody who
yeah,
comes to me has an individual situation anyway, so it's a very personalized thing. So it's not so much that, but there's lots of things I don't feel I can say that necessarily would apply to everybody. I don't know. There are general principles, but then they're a bit lacking in personality. You know, I have to be vague about things I say so I don't breach confidentiality, perhaps, or
okay,
I don't know. I'm
okay.
just making. I feel I'm just making excuses now.
No. I hear it. So part of it is the confidentiality thing. Part of it is knowing that there's certain content that you can speak about in vague principles, but of course it'll have to be translated for people. And maybe partly it's like, what would I even write? What would I even put out? What would I even, yeah. Okay, so one of the first things, and you can check this out. Oh gosh, Linda Claire Puig did this. I think it's a little assess. Did you see this assessment? I emailed the list about it.
Recently?
Oh, this was a month or two ago.
I only got on your list a couple of days ago. So.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so does anyone have this Linda Claire Puig's thing? It's a little survey that she did, and it's anyways how to figure out the best social media platform for you. And if anyone can find that, that would be great. Let me just actually see if I can in the membership track this down. That's one of the very first things to consider is, am I even on the right platform? Because sometimes like one platform will feel really good and another one won't. And people think, oh, I'm just bad at marketing. But actually what's going on is, oh, here we go. I'll grab this link for you. But what is actually going on is they're just in the wrong damn thing, you know? They're in the wrong, that's what I was missing. Okay, so it's if you go to, oh man, did she take this down or what? Well, this is her program. And now I'm not sure if she has the quiz up. Maybe I put the wrong link in. That program isn't even for sale anymore. Discover your, what the heck, everybody? Where'd it go? Oh, that's annoying. Okay, if anyone happens to track it down, if you can throw it in. But that's the first thing. Number one, which platform are you on? Second of all, is really figuring out the best content to share. Now, I've got a book called Point of View Marketing that has a workbook with it that is a lot of questions, and every single one of those questions could turn into a post. But also, if you go to my YouTube playlist, there's a playlist on point of view exercises, and every single one of those exercises could turn into something you could share. The best kind of content, though, are the stories of our work with clients. And so this, we all have to kind of wrestle with. It's different in different things. As a marketing coach, it's not going to be the same as somebody who's a therapist, talking about real deep personal issues. But generally, this is the best source of content. Is at the end of every day, you sit down and you think, okay, did anything happen? Maybe in a session, maybe I went to the store. Did anything happen today that's a good illustration of the stuff I talk about? And then if it's a client, you might be able to write it in vague terms. You could also just change all the details. Years ago, I talked with somebody who is, you can sometimes twist these things. So it's just, this is no longer has a real direct connection to the person, but you can use a general architecture or just the question they asked. And then you don't even have to say a client asked it. You can say, somebody I knew asked me this question one time. And sometimes there's real gold in our sessions, but also just our daily life. I mean, as a marketing coach, if I really wanted to, every day I could probably find something to talk about in the financial transactions I had. Hey, I went and I got a smoothie today, and here's something I noticed that is related to. So if we do that every day and you just schedule 5 minutes a day just to say, what's a story in the last 24 hours that I could share, there's probably something. And those stories are very, because the point of view can then appear in the stories. And I think the stories are better than just ideas, an abstract point of view, because the stories will contain the point of view as well, but are easier for the mind to grasp. And then it's not just which social media platform, but do we prefer to be on video? Would we rather write? Do we want to make it artsy and make little memes with it? Would we rather do audio? One of the things Linda Claire Puig said that I thought was just so important is, what's the best form of marketing? The one that you can do sustainably over time. Because anybody can kind of grit their teeth and just suck it up and do a kind of marketing that doesn't feel right for a week or two, or a month or a year. But eventually you'll stop doing it. Eventually that will end. So I don't know if any of that's helpful. Do you have any follow-up questions on that?
It is really helpful, thank you. And the follow-up question I do have is that of all the social media platforms that I'm connected with, Facebook is, I find, the easiest and most comfortable for me to put stuff out on and really be me. Whereas LinkedIn is where I think my target people are likely to be. And I find that a more difficult platform to be as relaxed on.
Sure. Well, a few thoughts about this. One, my colleague, George Cow, do you know him?
No.
Okay, so if you I'll put this in the chat. He's got a lot of great stuff around how to use LinkedIn. And so I'd commend his work to you. Part of, there's a reticence of trying certain things in marketing. And sometimes what it comes down to is it's not a confidence issue, actually. It's a competence issue. And we mistake the two. We're just so new to it. It feels so unknown. It's like, well, how would I do that? And it's not the platform. It's actually not a self-worth issue. It's just, I can't see a way to use this that would feel good. And until we can, we're not going to do it. And sometimes just educating ourselves, like, okay, how do other people do this? What could this look like? And just letting ourselves not do it for a while, but just learn and observe until a pattern appears where it's like, aha, that's the way I could do this that would feel good. Right. I'll do it this way. And sometimes it's just good to see how other people do it. But George's course is the one I'd recommend.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for coming.